Hi, and welcome to Goat Talks Beauty. I'm Jo, your host for this podcast, and I'm really excited to welcome three fantastic guests for our discussion today on all things trending, creator-led, and social media inspired from the past 12 months of beauty marketing. We know that beauty has always been at the forefront of influencer marketing and social media more widely. They've tended to be the first brands to jump on new platforms, leverage new trends, and a lot of the bigger creators and influencers are rooted in beauty. So I think this is going to be a really fascinating discussion for anyone looking to level up their marketing next year, whether you work in beauty or not. So I'm going to kick off by introducing my fellow podcasters today. So I'll come to you, George, first. Could you give a very quick background on who you are, your career, and what your kind of credits are within the beauty industry?
Credits in the beauty industry might be a stretch, but I'm George. I creative director at Goat, so head up the creative team. I feel like I wear a lot of different hats on the team. I work very closely with strategy on the planning side of things across every kind of brand there is under the sun. So I have worked with a lot of makeup, beauty, skincare stuff. But really, yeah, my whole thing is bringing the creative lens to our influencer work. Obviously, we play a bit of a middleman. We're not a creative agency. We're not putting out TV ads. We're trying to inspire influencers to put out great creative work. So that's kind of my main role, I'd say.
Amazing. And then Steph, I'm going to come to you next.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie and I am an influencer, an author and a freelance writer. And I've been doing this since 2008, so quite a long time. And within that time, while being an influencer, I also used to work in influencer marketing a few years ago as well. So it's been very interesting to kind of be on both sides of the coins with regards to how the industry has sort of changed since around 2008. And I predominantly work within fashion, beauty, lifestyle and travel.
Amazing. And then finally, Molly.
Hi everyone, I'm Molly. I'm account director here at Goat. I've been working in the influencer industry for about 5 years now, 3.5 of those being at Goat, and I predominantly lead up some of our biggest beauty clients. So I would say that's probably my niche now, alongside some other industries such as tech and food, etc. But yeah, I've always found the beauty industry very easy to work with because I can relate to it quite easily. So my job is to guide clients through what is reactive, what's cool on social at the moment, and how can we make them break through the noise on social in the beauty industry.
Great. And so kicking off with a bit of an icebreaker, Steph, how would you describe your beauty aesthetic? And are you a big beauty skincare user? Like, what's your routine?
So back in the day, I was very much into the Korean 10-step routine. I had all the things, just every single gadget you could think of. I was very much into that. And it worked for a while until I just started to get very lazy with it. And I was like, you know what, I can't be bothered. You know, when you
Life's
come
too
in,
short.
Comes 9 steps, then 8
2 a.m. and it's like, oh, step 4. Like, so
Brushing my teeth enough.
do you know what I mean? And so now I'm very, very stripped back, but I'm very heavily into skincare. So I maybe have like 4 or 5 steps, but for me, moisture and hydration is like key for me. So I'm very heavily into skincare. When it comes to makeup and beauty, I would say I'm more of a high contrast kind of girl. So I know that high contrast is one of the beauty trends that's been kicking about at the moment with regards to high and low contrast, which we'll probably get into in a bit later. But I actually don't have it today, but I love a good signature red lip and a winged liner. That's kind of like been my thing for like the last like 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Like perfecting the winged eyeliner was,
Oh my God,
was
I'm still
key
not there.
back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
I also still will like ruin my day by I'll be like late for work because I've attempted a winged eyeliner and it's gone wrong and I've had to like then start again.
Or
And you're
by the
like,
end of the day, it'll be on the top of my eyelids, and I'll be like, great, well, that was worth the 40 minutes it took this morning.
Yeah, exactly. Molly, how about you? Do you have like a overall beauty vibe, and you work in beauty? You probably get a lot of free. I mean, both of you probably get a lot of free stuff, actually.
I do, yeah. I'm quite lucky in that respect. I actually had one of those skin scans the other day, and the lady was saying to me, you really need to get into double cleansing. But double cleansing for me is just, if I'm doing it once, come on, guys, give me a break. Like, the double cleansing thing is too much for me. I would say I'm much more into that kind of like ease the aesthetics, the no makeup look. I find the beauty time in my kind of routine really like relaxing. So the whole getting ready for bed, like washing my face, I find it relaxing, but it doesn't take me more than 5 minutes. I love getting ready in the morning, put a YouTube video on. I used to be back in the day like a Desi Perkins hardcore fan.
Oh my gosh,
watching
yeah.
her makeup videos all the time. So Desi, if you're listening, please bring back the makeup videos, because
You're
I
getting
miss
ready
them.
inside.
Yeah. But I'm very much an easy, whatever's easiest wins my heart.
Yeah. Okay. And then George, you strike me as a bulldog man.
No,
Am I right?
Come on. I'm better than that. No, I don't mean that, bulldog. Don't sue me.
We might
I'm
want to work
I'm
with
a
them.
simple one. The thing is, when you live with a girlfriend, you just use her stuff. So I pull out things and I'm like, what the hell even is this? Out of the drawer, and I'll give it a go. But I'm a what's the brand called? CeraVe.
Oh, yeah.
CeraVe,
CeraVe's
green
great.
top CeraVe.
Yeah.
Bosh, on your face, clean it off. And you said your boyfriend doesn't moisturise.
I know.
I've got to say,
Yeah,
that is
Joe,
bizarre.
we're going to have to
I-
sort that
He
out.
says
don't
that
even
when
know
he
my skin would-
moisturizes, he breaks out though. So he's like,
Geez, a
just
different
needs to find the right
moisturiser.
type
he's got
of
a beard as
moisturiser.
well. I think that's the thing. It's difficult.
But
when
don't you
you've
have to
got a
take
beard.
care of a beard as well? You're
Oh,
meant
he
to,
uses like a beard
comb-
oil.
beard
Yeah.
oil.
Yeah. He's probably more into the beard
Yeah.
care than the
See, that's the thing.
skincare.
I can't amount to myself. I can't grow a beard at all. So, like, I feel because I shave, but daily, really.
You have
so
to
you
look
have
after
to
your skin.
look after your skin
Yeah.
more. Like,
Yeah.
after you shave, you've got to moisturise.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
So I'm a two-step, clean and moisturise. That's it.
I think that's easy done.
That's easy done.
I definitely think though, and I think I was going to talk about this later, but maybe just now, given we've touched on it, I feel there's a real pattern where I used to be the same, where back at like university I got really into influencers and I was watching all the YouTube videos and the Desis and the Lily Pebbles and all these skincare but I used to use like 10 products and I used to change them all the time, and I look back and I'm like, I think I was probably making my skin worse because I was constantly changing the products and using like 10 things, and then now I'm a lot more like 5 good products, like a double cleanse, a moisturizer, a serum, and kind of stick to that. But do you think that's like, I think that's what most women and men go through a
I
little
think
bit?
that it's also because there's so much science behind the products that we're using now, and there's so many ingredients, and the R&D in the beauty industry is huge, even for your brands that you're cheaper brands that you probably don't necessarily hear about their R&D development. It's massive. A lot of the products you're using probably are actually contradicting themselves, or they're doing different jobs. Therefore, your skin is just confused. So like stripping it back to a few good products that you know are for your specific skin concern is going to be your best bet here. And I think that's where a lot of the social work that I'm doing at the moment is also educating on what's in your products. So what are you actually putting on your skin? Not just putting a brand, you are putting sometimes ingredients that are quite harsh on your skin, or they're stripping a lot of your skin back, or they're protecting your skin, and understanding what's in each product so that you can make a routine that is best for your skin concern is super clear key to this audience.
Yeah, I agree. I think back in the day when like the beauty influence was like at its peak and like the sort of mid-aughts, and I remember going through a period where I used to use retinol with AHAs, and I would wonder why my skin just kept breaking out. And it's because, they're so acidic that you can't use them together. But because everything was a trend, so like retinol was a thing, niacinamide was a thing, ceramides. And so you kind of get looped into this craze of, oh, I need to have that for my skin. But I think a lot of us need to kind of, when we do see these new wonder ingredients coming up, is to say, but what is my skin type and how will it react to my skin? So like you, I've like completely stripped down sort of the amount of products that I use.
Yeah.
I think as well, like that's where social comes into it. It's like used to be, you go look at the shelf of products and like say you just go off the brand, and then but
vibes.
now you have it's just it is just vibes,
Packaging
isn't it?
often as
Now,
well, like what was pretty.
You have a specific skin type and you search on TikTok, products for this kind of skin or this kind of age, and then like that's how you discover things, and it's so much more specific how you can uncover what's right for you.
Exactly.
And I think that's like brands know that as well, don't they? As well, and they kind of bring that into their marketing a lot more.
Yeah, I did read though that there is a bit of a concern of especially Gen Z and kind of women in their early 20s or even teenagers, like you say, using retinols, AHAs, all these really harsh products, which actually are more meant to be for sort of maybe skin over 35, you know, when your skin actually needs a little bit more moisture or more chemical help maybe. And a lot of dermatologist influencers are coming out trying to re-educate to be like, you don't need, you know, a 14-year-old does not need a 10-step skincare routine with harsh acids and things. They need just a simple cleanse and moisturizer. And then when you're older, maybe you might want to get into those other things. But it that worries. I think that's been maybe one negative that's now correcting itself, that people have got a bit too into
trigger
beauty.
happy. I think it's interesting though, because in my opinion, I don't think anyone really needs a 10-step routine. I think that we're seeing some influencers, I follow specific ones who sometimes they look so like gaunt, and colour's gone out their skin. They're using so many products, and and you're kind of encouraging people to go out and buy too many of these acids, etc. But I think like you said, it's even more dangerous for those younger people. We know that social is penetrating a much younger audience nowadays, and me at 13 is very different to the 13-year-olds nowadays. And I know that Kiehl's did a really interesting campaign actually on trying to prevent children getting into skincare. And I thought it was really good because it not only represented the audience that Kiehl's are. Kiehl's is a very kind of mature audience. They're very like respectful in their marketing, etc. But they did a really amazing campaign where they showed children with like sand on their face, and it was like the only exfoliator your children needs, and
I saw
stuff
that.
like that.
That.
And it was like they were eating an ice cream, and it was like the only moisture your mouth needs as a kid. And it was all really kind of powerful like that. And it is true, like we as marketeers, especially in the beauty industry, we need to be kind of careful, and we need to respect and look after the younger generation, because otherwise it's a bit like you shouldn't go to the gym before you're 12 or something because you stunt your growth. You shouldn't be doing a retinol before you're 18. Absolutely, no question. So we have a responsibility here to kind of be educating on that respect as well.
A 12-year-old does not need to be using Drunk Elephant.
No. They shouldn't know what Drunk Elephant is.
Even know,
It is that you do, and I was in Boots, and it is literally like 13-year-old, like flocks of 10 to 13-year-old girls in the makeup skincare aisles, and they're
wild.
like, you look in the basket, they've got like 10 products in there.
And also, how do they afford this?
That's what I was about to say.
Beauty is so expensive nowadays. Like it's wild. What I was spending my pocket money on certainly wasn't a £35 moisturiser. But
mine was like Pokemon cards at the time. It was like Digimon. Like these are the things that matter.
That's way more fun as well.
Yeah, come on, guys.
I know, times have changed. Well, okay, so we're talking about some of the beauty aesthetics and trends for this year. I've written down some. I'm going to do a little test, see if you can tell me what you think they are. So George first. Can you give me like just a quick description? Clean girl.
I mean, kind of that's on the tin, isn't it? That's an easy one. The clean girl aesthetic. But that extends beyond beauty, doesn't it? When I think about it, that's like a sort of like the Scandi minimal, cos Arquette thing.
Yeah, a lot of the beauty trends, I think they are connected
Lifestyle.
to wider things as well.
Yeah.
And so clean girl, the words I have written down: fresh, dewy skinned, well rested, glowy, minimal effort. And I feel like Glossier really popularized that, didn't they? It was all about the clean girl look. Molly, latte makeup.
Gosh. So this is all that kind of neutral tones, right? So it's your browns, it's your kind of autumnal, it's your kind of warmth and your bronzery makeup. So it looks like you've been on holiday without being on holiday.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of warm, neutral, bronzed, caramelly makeup. Steph, tomato girl summer.
I actually Googled this before I got here.
I've never heard that.
That can't be real.
Girls.
It is.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Tomato girl summer. The first thing that I think of is like Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Well, is it like a tanned kind of like red lipstick?
You're kind of getting there. So according to Birdie, that's like a makeup kind of publication, a tomato girl at her core is someone with the essence of a garden in late August. On the makeup side, being a tomato girl is about leaning into the intrinsic ripeness and rosy cheeks of late summer. Earthy colour palettes, yes. Faux freckles, absolutely. So it's all like a kind of almost like you've been out in the sun a little bit and you've got a little bit of redness
like
from
a farmer, like a kind of farmer
kind of a
aesthetic.
farmer aesthetic.
So I'm interested with
like imagine a woman, like walking through the fields with a basket of tomatoes.
Oh, with like a bandana,
Right.
like a dungaree.
Yeah. So
Okay.
odd. Okay, a few more. George, mob wife. One of my personal
Yeah,
faves.
that's a good one, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's just like throwback to Sopranos.
Carmela
Just-
Soprano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carmela, what was the girl, Chris Morsanti's wife as well. She's like always in like leopard print.
Yeah, her name's gone from my head.
Yeah.
But I was devastated when she was killed. Spoiler.
Christ.
Yeah, leopard print, heavier eye lip makeup, false nails, kind
Again,
of a bit
it's
more
kind of more like
maximalist
it's
Cat's
fashion,
later.
isn't
It's
it?
an aesthetic,
Yeah.
general aesthetic.
Molly, old money / quiet lux.
Interesting. I mean, I can't say I've seen it massively, but I'm thinking pearls, I'm thinking leather jackets, I'm thinking headscarves, that kind of vibe.
Sophia Richie.
Sophia Richie.
Very quiet lux.
Yes.
And I think the makeup wise, similar to Clean Girl, but maybe a little bit more powdered, like
Yeah.
less glowy, more matte, but very chic, very elegant, very sort of like understated,
Well,
you
I
know.
thought Succession it came off the back of that, didn't it? Where it's like Laura Piana and all those brands where it's
Yeah.
like you got a cashmere jumper that costs like $5,000, but
also,
like just looks like a
also
Uniqlo
Gwyneth
jumper.
Yeah.
Paltrow during her ski trial.
Oh yeah, that was iconic.
She was iconic.
so
I know it was
iconic.
obviously a controversial time, but I was like, she looks good.
Looks great.
Okay, and then Steph, we got two more. So one more from you. Brat Girl Summer makeup.
So Brat Girl Summer, I didn't know that there was an actual makeup look attached to it. I kind of just, obviously it's based on Charlie XCX. So I just saw a lot of lime green and a lot of fluorescent green everywhere. But I don't know what the makeup
I can imagine like
equivalent.
heavy black eye makeup.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think what she.
Oh,
how
I
she
see, okay.
does that.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot of lime green, but also it says similar to Indie Sleaze. So quite grungy, lived in, messy eyeliner, sort of like you've been out partying all night and you've like shown up
Okay, like
from the night before.
like
Or
a
woken
kind of
up with your
Claudia
makeup on.
Winkleman type.
Yes, yeah, very Claudia
aesthetic.
Winkleman
Yeah,
coded.
10-step routine.
Yeah, yeah, that didn't
And
happen
then
at 2 a.m.
final one, George, Coquette.
Christ, what the hell is that? I couldn't even tell you. What? Surely
do
no
love
one knows
Coquette.
what that is.
I actually hadn't heard of it.
Steph, you know?
So it's kind of like, it's quite ethereal, isn't it? It's very like rosy cheeks. It's like big doughy eyes, big plump lips, sort of like very angel-like, very sort of innocent,
Sure.
angel doe-eyed.
Yeah, very innocent, very sort of leaning into hyper feminine. So fashion wise, it would be a lot of bows. It would be kind of, you know, little
His cute dresses.
ballet slippers and things. Very like Lolita kind
Yeah.
of, a little bit infantilized women type
Okay.
vibe. And makeup wise, a lot of like soft pinks and
Yeah.
hyper feminine, rosy cheeks, that kind of thing.
It's interesting, isn't it? Most of those trends are basically like kind of floaty, light makeup, warm colours, and then apart from the Brat Summer stuff,
Yeah.
it feels like it's weighted
Yeah.
more towards like minimal, like you know, or like sun-kissed,
Yeah.
natural.
Well, something I think is interesting is the connection, because obviously, you know, fashion, beauty, it's always connected to culture. And I think TikTok trends have driven these even faster. So do you think that sort of, how do you think these have represented maybe the last few years, you know, with what consumers have gone through? Because I think it's quite interesting that like Clean Girl was popular sort of pre and during pandemic. And then this summer it's been like Brat Girl Summer, Mob Wife. Do you think it represents people being a bit like, we're kind of over the pandemic, we're wanting to go out again, I'm wanting to like put some false eyelashes on, eyeliner?
Yeah.
I think so. I think that, you know, the pandemic was very traumatic for a lot of people. And so, you know, a lot of us were at home, we weren't really bothering with putting on makeup the way that we used to all the time. And so as soon as like everything was lifted and we went back to normal, everyone was like, I'm outside now. I'm going to be like
A tomato girl
chronically
summer.
outside. Yeah. So like, I think it's
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
return to like glamming up every night.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
I think
just,
we
like,
missed
going-
glamming up a
Yeah.
little bit.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. But whether maybe that will shift again, you know, maybe next year we might see that going back again as people, 2024 might have been a big party year. And then next year people will be like, I'm tired again, you know? But I think it's interesting sometimes when you track that I think makeup can tell us a lot about like where people are or people's personalities as well.
Well, it often feels quite like counterculture, doesn't it? Really, makeup, the way people are doing it's like, you know, it's they're doing it. It's a statement thing, isn't it? A lot of the time, even
Yeah.
like the clean girl stuff, even though it's like minimal, it's like still being like a bit counterculture.
Yeah.
I guess as well, isn't it? So
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
definitely like the sort of brat summer. That whole thing was literally so like, you know, anti everything.
Yeah.
It took my head so long to get around Brat Summer. Couldn't
Same.
understand it.
Same.
Do you still understand what it is at all?
I do. I have slowly got my head around it. Yes.
I think that's why people like it though, because it's so undefined. You can literally say it
Yeah.
about anything. That was
You can
the right
literally
word.
say it
Yeah.
about
People
anything.
just say it.
I love
so
it.
You're just
Random.
saying it.
Yeah.
You're not even doing anything. You're just saying brat summer. And
You
just
can-
doing
you
normal
can-
it's just
things.
Like I've
excuse to
heard
do what you
people,
like.
I've heard
Yeah.
people in the office, like get a coffee or something, and it's like brat,
Oh,
and you're
God.
just what?
It's so
What do you mean?
random.
Yeah.
But I think, I kind of love it. And why do you think Gen Z in particular, or like, do you think that Gen Z like to have these more sort of aesthetics? Like, did they have this back when our parents were growing up? You know,
I think we must have done. It just wasn't as online. I think that everyone goes through phases and there are trends. Like even when I was in school, Scooby-Doos were a thing. I don't know if you guys.
gosh, yeah.
I made a lot
Yeah.
of money selling Scooby-Doos. So, and like we used to wear them on our jeans and round our
Yeah.
wrists, etc. And I'm sure that if we lived in the day and age where social was as big as it is now and trends were becoming more of an online craze, it would have been. And I think it's just that they have the opportunity to spread that so much further now. Whereas before it was in little kind of communities of your school or your friendship or your family. And yeah, it just wasn't as widespread.
yeah,
I think everything moves quicker as well because everything becomes so quickly commercialized.
Yeah.
Like even Brat Summer, like it became Kamala Harris's like
Yeah.
political
campaign,
campaign.
yeah.
And the thing is, as soon as that happens, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm not interested in that anymore." And the next thing, so everything is like at hyper speed because
Yeah.
it becomes popular. All the brands get involved. Everyone goes, "Oh, I'm not interested in that anymore. It's not cool anymore."
Yeah.
And it's like you can literally commercialize it in a heartbeat. Clean girl aesthetic brands see that. A makeup brand goes, "Great, our next products are all going to be, you know, R&D."
Yeah.
Suddenly, how do we make this? How do we get into the latte stuff? How do we put these colors in our palettes
Yeah.
or whatever it is?
I think it all ultimately falls down to the FOMO effect. And I think that what social does now is makes you feel left behind if you're not part of it. So with that and brands jumping onto it and reactivity now is such a big thing. And I think that I remember back in the day of Bird Box, did you guys watch
Yeah.
that on Netflix? And I remember Bird Box marketing did a fantastic job of meme culture. And I remember seeing, and there was some crazy fact, and don't quote me on this, but it was something like 33% of Netflix users watched Bird Box and over half of those
Wow.
watched 60% of it minimum. So like it was all because of the FOMO effect, because you were seeing these memes online and if you didn't understand them, you weren't part of that kind of that social wave. And I think that's the case with all social trends. Like kids at school, if you aren't wearing a lip tint, which is all the craze at the moment, is like, how are you not keeping up? How have you not seen it? Why are you not doing that? The FOMO of being part of a community that's not only within your small tight-knit group, but also the online community and the trends that everyone is doing is a huge kind of behavioral shift.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you think though, I mean, as a creator and as people who work with creators and brands, do you think that is there a danger of brands kind of now just relying on what is trending? And because surely they're not going to be able to turn it around quick enough. Like something like Mob Wife, for example, by the time they've created and produced a product based around that, it will have passed. So is it like a good strategy for brands to live by and for creators as well to kind of just base on like what's trending? Now I need to create some content around that.
I think when we kind of go down that road, it kind of not delegitimizes anything, but I feel like it's very, I don't know how else to say this, but sometimes it's like, it can very quickly give you the ick if you see creators and or brands jumping on every single trend every time. It doesn't really give that trend or that look that we're doing the opportunity to kind of breathe and have its kind of breathing space. And then if everything is too commercial, then it's just like, well, I think it will get to a point where people suddenly counter that. So we saw a lot of like the de-influencing trend and people saying, you know, don't do this, don't do that, you don't need to buy this, you don't need to kind of buy that. And I think we're in a place at the moment where sustainability is like such a huge topic at the moment. So I think I think there is this kind of culture online where we're enjoying these trends and we're seeing brands sort of replicating these trends, but then there's also that social responsibility as well. So that you have people that are watching out for, okay, well, you know, for instance, Mob Wives has been a thing. And so this brand are coming out with a selection of, I don't know, eyeliners or something. But how long is that going to stay on the shelves before they do the next thing? And then it invites critique on the way in which they've mass produced that. So I think it could be a good strategy, but I just think it's important to pick and choose the trends that we do.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it can lead down the road to people sort of hyper critiquing every single trend that comes through.
Yeah.
It does feel kind of wasteful, doesn't it? When you're like, just like jumping ship to the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's not like, I don't think it's a particularly sustainable business model, because eventually, like, you know, you're not going to get it right, and then like everyone loses interest. Like there's a balance somewhere with a brand like that, isn't there, where it's like you're in your own lane, but you're still connected to culture.
Yeah.
But you're not like, that's not the only thing. Otherwise it's like you've got no foundation. People just know you as like, it's like fast fashion brands, isn't it? Like there's no real like brand identity to it. It's just like mass produced, like super trend led stuff. They like see what designers make and then they make it for a tenth of the price.
And is it mainly creators or brands that are driving these trends? Do you, from your guys' perspective?
I think it's interesting. I think that it's brands are like, they actually make it more of a trend now. I think it used to be the other way around, but now like something small will happen. Like all of these trends you read out, they probably were a flash in the pan, but because brands talk about them so much, then people think that they're a thing.
There was probably like 4 girls saying tomato girl.
And then like every makeup brand
and
does
then
it.
brands were like, let's jump
make
on
that
this.
thing.
I think it's true though, what you were saying is that you have to, reactivity has to be a section, and it has to be a strategic section of your wider marketing plan. So we talked with one of the beauty brands I work with at the moment about a kind of their social always on strategy, and we came up with this idea of stay and play. So the stay element is do what you always have to do that kind of your brand tone of voice and your brand identity online, but the play has to be that a dropping in and sprinkling of reactivity and fun and creative that is very unexpected and is going to build traction. I think that if you, and we've seen it at Goat quite a lot, where you force something into a trend just so that you can hype on that algorithm and that views, and it just doesn't work, and you're going to get bad sentiment. So you can't fit a square peg in a round hole, right? You have to make sure that it's still relevant to your brand. It's part of your always on strategy. It's part of your kind of general brand identity as well. Otherwise it's just not going to work.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so moving on from trends a little bit to more creators. Firstly, who are your favorite creators within beauty?
This is like going to really out me publicly. I have such guilty pleasures online.
We love a guilty pleasure.
As I said, I was a back in the day beauty girl. So the Desi Perkins, the Katies. I'm a Sarah Ashcroft watcher. So all of those kind of beauty influencers. I'm personally a YouTube for beauty. I still think that the long form is where you want to actually hear about it and you want to watch someone do it, especially as 90% of the time I'm watching these videos, I'm doing it myself. So I'm getting ready for the morning, etc. But yeah, those would probably be my top go-tos.
Do you know what? Funnily enough, I'm so... when I was younger, or a few years ago, I was in that stage of my life where I was very like insecure about how I looked. And so I really tried to not watch beauty videos because I would find myself comparing and then wanting to go out and buy this because I thought it would make me look a certain way. And being a creator as well in that world of beauty where everybody looks amazing, I noticed that it really began to get to me after a while. So I kind of made a conscious effort not to watch too many beauty videos. However, there is one creator that I've been watching just forever, Jackie Aina. Jackie Aina, who's an American beauty YouTuber, she's, for me, is incredible. We have the same skin tone, the same skin type, and she educates, and she's also very, very funny.
Yeah.
With her content as well. And yeah, I just love her, and I've learned so many makeup tips from her, and yeah, she's iconic. She's great.
I need to look these up. I feel like you mentioned a few. I thought I was very in the know, and people keep saying things, and I'm like, I don't recognize these people. Shows how many there are, though, and how like even when you think you're really in the industry, you still can have people be like, this amazing creator that you've not heard of, and like 1 million people follow them. George, are you, I mean, I know you probably keep up with it for work, but like you personally,
I mean,
into
off
any
the
of it?
cuff, I don't think I could really name any, but I think that I think there's a broader point about the way that men use products. I think that like they find one thing that works and they use it for 40 years. You've got like a loyal customer there for life. So I think it's there's less of that sort of like, because I think the fun thing about watching beauty influencers is them trying stuff you don't have, like new things, finding out, like you say, someone similar to you using something, like, oh, that's interesting, that might be something I could incorporate into my routine. Where I think guys are like, there's probably been points in my life where I'm like, right, it's time for a change. And I'm 10 years into this hair product. Like, I think I need something new. And like you go on
if it
and
ain't
like,
broken, don't fix it.
and you like hunt it down. And in that moment, you probably cover a lot of ground. But then,
I think you also mentioned something interesting, though, that I think a lot of men start using it based on their girlfriend or partner or wives' recommendations or sisters or mums or whatever. But from our jobs, I guess, in marketing, it's almost like there's a secondary thing of maybe we need to be trying to advertise to women for men, if that makes sense. Because
we do that sometimes. At Go, we most of our beauty campaigns will still do like couples tutorials, because there's kind of this like, my girlfriend teaches me how to do my skincare routine, because
we need more of that.
there's some crazy fact that I think something like 70% of females are the shoppers for a household. Like you're still going to the shop.
Deodorant.
So deodorant, everything that is still probably going to be purchased by a female. So what you're deciding for your partner to use is probably down to them.
Interesting.
It's
Shameful.
It's the same.
You should be ashamed.
We should be ashamed. It's with everything. It's like cars, like interior decoration. Everything is literally decided in a household by a woman,
Rightly
isn't
so.
it?
It's like,
I stand by it.
There's nothing worse than like sometimes like if you're dating someone and then you go into their bathroom and you see that they've got 8-in-1 shower gel.
Talk about
like
the
8-in-1, and it's like, are you like scrubbing the toilets with it as well? Like, come on.
And they all have like the best skin, and you're like, how does that work?
This is
for
what
you?
irritates me, though, that like you were saying, I can't believe your boyfriend doesn't use moisturizer, but his skin is like perfect, and it drives me mad. He has no wrinkles,
and they have the longest eyelashes as well.
Yes, and great eyebrows.
Yes, and it's just like, what do you use on them? Nothing. I just
so
use water, and it's
annoying.
like,
Just water, give a bit of sand.
I bet that you guys aren't even like actually doing this in the shower.
No,
just letting it drip over.
Just squirt it on, slap it on, and then off.
And then leave. Well, okay, aside from creators then, what are your favourite beauty brands on social? Like, who do you think's nailing it with their marketing?
For me, I really love Rhode. I think Rhode is doing really well. I love Topicals. So Topicals are a US brand that recently came to the UK via Sephora, and they're a Black-owned brand, and they specialise in skincare that targets dark spots and hyperpigmentation. But the way that they've done their marketing strategy, I think, has been incredible, because they, in terms of like press trips and things that brands do with influencers, this is the first time I've seen a brand take a group of influencers on a press trip to sub-Saharan Africa. So they went to Ghana, which is where I'm from. But it was just incredible, because it's like you don't see a lot of press trips or brand trips going to Africa, which is a shame, because there are so many amazing countries there. But because they're a Black-owned brand, and, they're very sort of deep into the culture and things, they took all of these influencers to Ghana. They had an amazing time. And yeah, it's just really, there's something really nice to kind of see that representation play out. And their products are amazing as well. So yeah, I do love Topicals.
Love that.
I think in similar vein, Refi is one that shouts out to me. And I think that all of these brands that we're going to name are probably by like iconic women, right? If we think about the Rare Beauties, the Rhodes, the
I love
Refis.
Rare Beauty.
Yeah.
Like,
Rare's another one. Excuse me, because they're very like, I think their recent campaign was something like embrace the rare. So it was like showing your face if it had a bit of hair on it or your kind of like imperfect skin tone, etc. But I think Refi, they recently did also a press trip, but they flipped it around and they didn't actually take influencers. They took consumers. So it was all released in what like a broadcast channel. So you had to be engaging with the brand to win, to be able to go. They took a group of people who were just your average kind of you and me. And I think the biggest thing here was the UGC that they came from it, because I can't tell you how many of my clients now are talking about UGC. Like, how can we get more of this?
Yeah.
How can we get people talking about it online? How can we make sure they're talking about the right people and the right things and how we frame our brand, etc. And this is a really great way of doing it. Don't take your influencers who are already being paid a lot of money or are already getting a free... Take your audience and let them embrace your brand more and let them tell their peers. Like, that's peer-to-peer recommendation. It is absolute core, right?
Yeah.
So, and then they amplified it through their own channel, which had the reach, and therefore you kind of get a great campaign and brand from it.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, and to shift away from me having to name a brand, do you think that, like, obviously the marketing side of things, all the brands you talked about there, it feels that it's never really about the product?
No.
It feels like all like press trips and all these things are like, it's not really, and maybe it goes back to that point of like, you have to fundamentally build a brand. It's kind of what you do outside of, because ultimately these products are probably pretty similar, aren't they? Like a lot of them, like how different can mascaras be really?
For sure.
I mean, I say that, they probably can be, but usually they're not. So it comes these brands, they've got to be so innovative in the way they differentiate each other on social, don't they?
Well, it's all about how a brand or a product makes you feel. And I actually saw Rhode did a really great Instagram or campaign where they had like the new Rhode moisturizer, this is how it makes you feel. And it had a picture of like a duvet, like a really nice crisp white duvet with a cup of tea, like, and crumpets on a kind of breakfast tray. And then it had like a kind of warm, cozy jumper. So it was all just showing nothing to do with the product or what the product had in it, but it was like, this is how this product's going to make you feel. Yeah. So it feels like there's kind of two, I think the brands either seem to go down the more sort of dermatological, science-backed route where they really focus on that and they kind of partner with dermatology influencers and you know, skin influencers and things, or they go down a more like, we're just going to create this real feeling around this brand and what this brand represents. And if you wear this brand and you use this brand, this is how it's going to make you feel.
I think it's interesting that you bring up the mascara thing as well, because it reminds me of a situation with, I don't know if you guys know about the whole Benefit press strip situation. So like because I think sometimes brands can use viral moments or even controversy to raise up the
whole idea, PR's bad
PR, and they this was maybe like 6 years ago where they took a group of influencers to the Maldives, and it was to celebrate their new mascara, which nobody spoke about in any of the content. It was just all about the Maldives. And I remember looking at it and I was like, at the time, and I was just like, how does this relate to the mascara? Like, we're just seeing a lot of influencers having fun in the Maldives. 2 weeks later, I was in Selfridges and I saw the mascara and I bought it. And I was like, I am a marketer's dream. I was like, okay, now I see how it works. And that mascara is amazing. It's the Bad Girl Lash mascara.
I love Benefit do great mascara.
You didn't know that until you
I didn't know it at the time,
Yeah.
but because I kept seeing people critiquing this press trip, that mascara was just in my head for like 2 weeks. And then when I saw it, I bought it.
But so they knew what they were doing a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's all about that like it girl aesthetic, right? And that's exactly what influencer marketing is. It's making you want to be similar to someone else. You want to live that life that you will never be going to the Maldives with Benefit probably, or I certainly won't. But if I buy it, I have a little bit of that kind of feeling, and you just want, and it's a bit like all of these brands that are by these iconic women. Like, why am I buying a phone case that has a lip balm in the back? Well, because Hailey Bieber's cool.
Well,
it just is. It's just a thing, and it's just a craze.
Not to undermine what we do, but like makeup also is like, maybe people don't think about it that much. You go into a shop, like you say, you see a product and you buy it, and it's about front of mind more than anything. It's it's literally about saturation. If enough people,
implicit branding,
if you just see that content, there's a chance that next time you're picking and you've got choice paralysis because there's 1,000 fucking mascaras in front of you, you go, oh, I know, I saw that video. They were in the Maldives. I just saw that on TikTok.
It's like that film Focus with Will Smith, where he gets her to choose the number 5 because she'd been seeing 5 all day without her knowing it. It was like the bellboy's badge, and it was the song was 5 and blah blah blah, and it was just the whole day he was being told to choose the number 5, and then eventually you do it. And I guess that is with social, like you said, it's all implicit branding of not knowing you're being
I guess
targeted.
Also you've got to, because us three are all quite into beauty, so we probably watch the YouTubers and and I will happily sit and watch a 20-minute video that's really detailed about like makeup and beauty because I'm interested in it. But a lot of my female friends are not interested in makeup and skincare. Like they're more similar to you, where they'll use a cleanser and a moisturizer, they'll use makeup, but they're not into it in any way. And so you've got to reach those people as well. Otherwise, if you're just a brand working with only beauty influencers, you do risk having a bit of an echo chamber where you're only engaging beauty enthusiasts. But actually, if you we always talk about partnering with different communities, like maybe if you go and work with roller skating influencers, then they might be interested in it, or travelers, and there's you've got to get outside of just your beauty bubble, I think.
And we were talking about that before, about it was actually in men's skincare that there are these two audiences, and there's this one audience who is going to wash their face with water and soap and they're not going to be ever bothered by it, so you have to like target them specifically through other routes. And then there's the second audience is they probably do wash their face and moisturize or might exfoliate once a week, but they'll go in and it'll either be brand loyalty, so what you've used for years, or it will be what's end of aisle cheap. And that's where exactly what you're saying, like that audience one, you can't catch them in the skincare space because you're never going to find them there. They will never engage in that content. So you have to find them elsewhere. So you're finding them in that wide variety of verticals. And we find that all the time. We're now going through comedy routes or sports people or all of these other routes, because otherwise those people will never be reached by your targeted campaign.
Yeah, definitely. And you all mentioned sort of brands you liked, except for George, who gave a pass.
A good pass. Come on, it was a great
a tactical pass. But I did notice a lot of them seem to be newer brands or ones that were started by influencers. Or I was thinking of Elf Cosmetics. I always point to them as like a great example of a brand that has massively turned it around, because when I was at school and uni, Elf was considered like a bit cheap and a bit nasty, like you wouldn't want to get it for Christmas. And
sorry Elf.
No, but I'm saying what they've done is incredible, because it's just that they've fully shifted the brand perception, and they've positioned it as actually this really great quality but affordable, funny,
for sure,
funny brand. But what do we think then of the the old classics, like the Heritage, Estee Lauder, the Bobbi Browns, the Charlotte. I mean, Charlotte Tilbury, I wouldn't say is as much a heritage. I think she got big 10 years ago.
10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, but the sort of the long coms, the luxury or mid to luxe level, are they struggling to keep up as much?
I don't think so. And this might be showing my age here, but I think that they had built such a strong foundation. Like Bobbi Brown to me will always still be considered a treat, and it will be considered a mature. I mean, I think it was built on like wedding makeup. Filler. Yeah, exactly. And I think that what they did before has made a really strong foundation for them to still be considered players in the game. They're never going to disappear. However, your newer brands have to be on social more. They have to be more breakthrough, and because it's so saturated. And I think that for me, I see the kind of the Bobbi Browns and the Estee Lauder sit back and go, you guys can try, but I'm pretty much, I'm here to stay and I'm not going anywhere. And people still consider me strong players in the game.
Yeah. And I think one of the main reasons why those brands such as Estee Lauder, Bobbi Brown, why they have such longevity outside of everything you've said as well, is because they were some of the first brands. I also think sort of representation is such a big thing. So outside of sort of those 2 or 3 brands, they were one of the ones that one of the first ones before Fenty to have shade ranges in all shades. And so once you get your audience of people that have those shade ranges, you will go back and back and back. So like my mum still uses Bobbi Brown to this day. She introduced me to Bobbi Brown. I use Bobbi Brown. That's like my favorite foundation that I use to this day. So Estee Lauder Double Wear and then the Bobbi Brown Weightless Foundation are the two that I use.
They did it right early.
They did, and that's the thing. They did it right early. So they've amassed their loyal sort of set of fans because they chose to be sort of diverse very, very early on. And then you had the Fenties that came along that did the range and things like that. But what I am seeing though, unfortunately, not to bring the tone down, but like especially on TikTok, I am noticing that some of the specific houses, beauty houses, seem to be relying on anger in order to go viral now. So you see a lot of beauty influencers critiquing or reviewing makeup. So I'm seeing this specifically with blushes and foundations and bronzers, where it almost feels like the brands are intentionally not making the ranges diverse. So then what happens is the influencer will review it on camera and say, this is a really bad shade range. That will go viral. Other influencers will buy that blush so that they can go viral with their range. And then all of a sudden you see, and
then suddenly they release 20 more shades.
And then they release
a few months later.
And it just feels like maybe that's what they were trying to do all along, but they needed that initial anger so that people would go viral, their product will go viral, more people will buy it so that they can review it, so that they can go viral. So I'm seeing that in terms of like shades and things, there are some brands that are using methods that are, to me, a little bit insidious in order to kind of still maintain their relevance.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I knew it was happening, but I didn't ever think about the possibility that it could be like a sort of semi-intentional strategy maybe to do that. But yeah, I can see how that could be definitely the case. And generally sticking on that as well, how do you think the beauty industry has it improved when it comes to inclusivity and diversity and representation and the marketing, social media, influencer marketing wise as well? Or do you think it's taken a step back? What do you think?
I think in terms
Be as honest as you want.
So I think in terms of shades and ranges and things like that, there's been a huge improvement, which I think is great. So I think in sort of the last 10 years, I think when Fenty Beauty came along and released those initial 40 shades, that kind of put 50p in people's backs to kind of be like, oh, actually,
gave everyone the shake up that they needed.
Like actually maybe we need to be more diverse. So that has brought about a host of different skin tones and skin shades that we've seen. So in that regard, I think it's great. I think where it could be better is the use of influencers in the beauty space, the use of influencers of color, of Black influencers. There is still it's still quite underrepresented in that field, unfortunately. And sometimes when we do think of like beauty and fashion and which cultures drive certain trends, sometimes there are quite a few trends that have been sort of based in the Black community or like the Middle Eastern communities. And those are the two communities which tend to drive a lot of the trends that we tend to see now, but they're also the most underrepresented when it comes to like campaigns, press trips, all of these kinds of things. And even in like marketing materials, but there's been an improvement from like 5-10 years ago, but I think there still needs to be a bit more. And even outside of that, even if we talk about like size as well, like with beauty and skincare, it would be so nice one day to see models who have round faces and not just high cheekbones all the time, because
or not trying to contour the hell out of their face.
Not trying to contour. And it's like, some of us that have round faces, I don't know how to contour or apply blusher because everybody has high cheekbones. So everybody, when I watch videos, they know where to put their blusher because they have the same face shape. But
I used to always think this about with hooded eyes as well.
I was just about to say the same
I used to
thing.
watch videos and be like, but when I do my eyeshadow, it doesn't work that way. And then I realised it's because my eye shape is different.
Yeah. It is exactly true.
Yeah.
And just to echo that, I agree. I think we're making small steps forward, but we've got a hell of a long way to go. I think that every industry does, and I think that doesn't just mean the beauty industry. I think that social is still very underrepresentative of diverse groups, and I think that everyone needs it to be front of mind consideration when doing a marketing plan.
Are the brands you guys are working with, is it something they are pushing, prioritizing? You know, do you think enough, or?
I think they are. It's often appears quite tokenistic though, because I think that like actually executing it, wanting to do it and executing it are two very different things. And like, you know, inclusivity gets thrown around so much and it's such a buzzword, but like, you know, and you can do it. You could do a campaign and do a great job, and then you think, oh great, well,
I've done that.
Tick that box for the year, like great, you know.
It has to be a common thread.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
And
it goes a lot further than just doing it once. And I think your point, the products have like completely diversified, and now it's like that we talked about earlier, for different people it's great, like there's a real selection, but it's weird that the marketing hasn't, because it's like you would sell a lot more products if you were more like, if there's more representation within your marketing. It's obviously something with Purple Goat we talk about all the time, right? It's like it's financially smarter to include more people in your marketing, because then more people feel like, oh, that brand's for me. I can use that product.
Yeah, Purple Goat is our sister agency that I believe you've maybe spoken on a panel with Dom as well.
Yes.
So they
What a
are an
guy.
inclusive marketing agency specifically focused on the disabled community. And yeah, they're very passionate about that I think it's one of the least represented groups, isn't it, in any marketing and advertising.
The stats that I'm going to do it no justice, but it's like 2% of the UK is vegan. And you see the amount of vegan adverts you see, right? Or product, like 20% of the UK have some sort of disability. Like, how many adverts do you see that are like focused to include those kind of people? It's like, you know, the representation to what you actually see, the people you see in adverts or who they're talking to. There's such a disparity. It's like you're just losing money. Even if you're not doing it for ethical
an
reasons.
entire group of people. Right?
Like.
And what do you think as well? Because I was really thinking about how I often think the conversation doesn't include like older people as well, and older women. And a brand I actually wanted to shout out, because I know we shouted out a few earlier, is Trini London. And so I know she started it, Trini, from Trini and Susanna fame. Used to love that show.
Yeah, same. 101.
You could definitely not have that now. But yeah, she started a beauty brand, and it's very focused on like more mature women. And I don't know, I'm sure she's kind of expanded that now, but when it started, she was very passionate about like a lot of the newer brands that you hear about are very targeted to Gen Z or young people, whereas actually it's, you know, women over kind of 40 are probably going to be the ones that have more disposable income and who are going to be spending more and actually
my
have more
mum is a
skin
marketer's
concerns
dream,
maybe.
honestly.
And
Instagram ads she buys from, I'm just like, she's click, great.
Yeah, but then we don't really see them in and you know, as you guys know, more and more sort of older demographics are using TikTok, using Instagram, but how much are the brands we're working with like using influencers to target older audiences?
I think that probably the problem that I find with the brands that I work with who have older kind of skincare brands and products, etc. So it is a massive part of the conversations we have. But I think brand managers are still quite confused as how to use social to reach those audiences. And I think that quite a lot of brand managers are still not convinced that the older community is on these social platforms. And I think that's a taboo that we definitely, or kind of an assumption that is just not true. Like they might not be posting themselves, but they're there, they're liking, they're buying. If we use my mum as a case study, she's there, and she's definitely a TikTok shop addict. And I think that the representation is key then. So it's like, should we be using older women on TikTok? Yes, because they're there. They just aren't posting. That's why you think you're not seeing them. But they're also then the kind of the older influencer community is smaller. So then you run into issues of exclusivity, and if they're using one brand over the other, and that's where it is a little bit harder to do it than it is to Gen Z.
Younger influencers, I guess, is the reality of it. And then going into kind of content as well, what types of content are performing best? I know that we have spoken in the past about get ready with me's and, you know, go to bed with me or whatever, great, and they can be really effective, but it is, you know, it can be a little
bit
boring
tiresome
if that's all you see. So what kind of content is performing best in beauty?
I think what I've always said, and this is what we were speaking about before, is that beauty, in my opinion, was like the first influencer industry or vertical that really took off. And your sit down and your get ready with me's, your YouTube videos, your tutorials was kind of like the 101 of influencer marketing. And then it diversified into lots of different elements. And I think that where the industry has developed, I think the beauty side of it has kind of stayed a little bit archaic in the whole get ready with me's and the kind of get undressed with me or day in the life. And I think that's where we're constantly having to push the brands we work with to do is something a little bit out there and doing some more of your, and like I'm still seeing ASMR. And I know it's quite aesthetically pleasing, but come on guys, like we can think outside of the box here and we can jump into some more of kind of the cooler stuff and the more interesting elements of social than sit in front of you and tell you what I'm putting on my skin.
I think it's you said it. It's the stay and play thing for me, isn't it? Like there has to be a certain element of like get ready. You need product use case videos,
and a good review
this.
video sometimes
they
is
still
what you want to watch.
do a hell of a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to marketing. But like there has to be the flip side to it, the play side. There's that statistic now that like only 15 to 20% of the content we see is from people we follow. 80% of the content we see is from your algorithm basically. So it's all like relevancy, like the way that TikTok works. Obviously you're kind of just you're on your FYP. It's just like stuff that's relevant. So with that regard, the stuff you make, the content, the ads you put out, there has to be something in there that's gonna there's gonna be a hook. It's gonna be something exciting, something different. And then I guess the challenge though is to like get your brand in there. And that's our job, really, isn't it? So so it's like you can do something like you said. You can send influencers to the Maldives, great. But like, what am I getting to know about your product here? So it's that balance, isn't it? I guess.
And Steph, you've obviously been a creator since like 2008. How has it changed for you in terms of the content you create?
Oh gosh, I think with the introduction of Reels on Instagram really changed the game for a lot of us. For me, I used to hate it at first because I'm very much into photography. So I love still images and creating imagery. So when it became a thing where the algorithm was pushing video, I was like, oh God, I just don't want to be on video. But actually, I found that it has really helped in terms of the way I take in content as well, because you then get to see how creative people can be with the information that they're sending through. So one thing that I've actually noticed more on TikTok than anywhere else is when there are certain creators where when they're trying to, I guess, seed in beauty content or skincare specifically, they will do face to camera and they will just tell like a funny story, or they will tell like, oh, this weird thing happened to me. And while they're doing it, they're applying like body oil or they're like doing their makeup.
You'll never guess what this guy I went on a date with did last night, because instantly you're hooked. And then they're like doing their makeup
and then
at the same time.
And they're using all of these like, like a Dyson, or they're doing their hair. And then as you're watching it and listening to the story and seeing how entertaining it is, you're just like, okay, but what is she doing with her hair? Like, how is she?
And suddenly it's really nice.
I have bought so many things on TikTok because of that, where I'm listening to somebody who's telling a really engaging story, but they're not mentioning what they're using at all. And then in the corner, suddenly you see, oh, there's an affiliate link for this body oil that they're using. And I'm like, And I'm also a marketer's drip. I will buy anything if it
Are you a TikTok shopper? Have anyone... I've not
dived in yet.
But... Me and my mum loves TikTok Shop. Oh my God, I have to
because it's easy. I think
it is, but I always have to be like, before you buy something, just phone me and let me see, because a lot of the things can be a bit scammy. So I'm just like, please just let me look at the ad before you buy it. But I've found people over the years, the Get Ready With Me's as well, I think is very important when it comes to skincare specifically, because I think there is still a place for, especially those who are very intentional about skincare and love to talk about it. There are those videos where you do need to sit down and speak to your audience and educate the audience on specific lotions and things, just from like a sort of health and safety point of view. But in terms of beauty, I think there are sort of opportunities where we can be a bit more creative. And I think we need to get to that point before brands start saying, do you know what, we don't need to use influencers, we're going to AI. And we don't want it to get to that point.
No.
So I think we do need a bit of a shake up in regards to how we can creatively get our creatively work with brands in order to highlight products, but also in a way that's a lot more engaging than what we have right
and
at the
a lot
moment.
of that will come from you, right? Like we always say this, and it's a bit of that classic buzzword, but we rely so heavily on creators for their understanding of their audience and what works. And you come up with videos that I probably would never have thought of, but you know that that's where your engagement is going to come from. And you know the day in the life you live every day that you can tap that product into. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, if I watch something, I don't actually mind if I'm being targeted by a marketing ad, if it's something that I also want to watch. Like, it doesn't bother me. Whereas then when I'm getting fed a load of stuff that kind of is just so not me, or it's so over the top in your face, that is exactly when you're just going to scroll past it.
Yeah.
Do you find with beauty brands, are they prescriptive when you work with them? Are they like, do they try and tell you what to make, or is it like Molly's saying, where it's a bit more like, we want to see your spin on?
So luckily enough, they're very much into giving us creative freedom, because there are some instances I've seen where there have been other creators that have been given briefs by brands, and as you're scrolling through Instagram, you're seeing the same kind of content. And I think consumers are just very switched on now when it comes to influencer marketing and how they're being sold things. So I think since there was like a huge uproar on TikTok a couple of years ago, where I think a lot of people were critiquing a specific hair care brand that deals with I can't remember the name of them, but they do like hair straightening products. And the same brief was given to each influencer, where they had to be in a car and pretend as if they're going to work. And then they have these mobile sort of cordless hair straighteners, and they were doing their hair in the car. And I saw no less than like 15 videos that were all the same, just different creators in the same car. And that was a huge sort of backlash to that, because it's like, can we be a bit more different? And I think brands have kind of switched onto that now. And so the briefs that I'm getting in are all like, just do your own thing, as long as you have like the core messages in there, but create the content in a way that will kind of translate well to your followers. And I found that giving the creators the creative freedom to be able to present that, whether it's like through comedy or through like fashion even, or trying to like cross certain topics together, yields great results.
I think that works for us as well, though, because we're such a test and learn agency. If we had 16 of the same influencer doing the same concept, what are you going to take from that? And what if something works or something didn't? It might just be that an influencer had a bigger following or a better day on that kind of particular piece. If we get 16 pieces of diverse content with different messaging styles and different kind of engaging ways, we can dive into that and then kind of gauge for the next brief what that piece of content is going to look like, to make sure that performance also is beneficial. So I think that that's definitely the best way to go forward.
Well, there's that. I guess the for me the balance is like, you need a core creative red thread concept that links all the content together. Otherwise, it just feels like sporadic and like it's like, you know, that's fine in some cases, but like even when you're running a specific campaign, trying to say, you know, it's a waterproof mascara or something, right? You have there'll be a message there. But then the clever thing is to keep it just open enough without too many parameters, so that creators can put a spin on that brief.
Exactly.
But everything links together as well. That's where the magic happens for me. Like, there's that camp where everything's kind of random and then everything's the same.
Yeah,
and then you're like, you want the sort of mix, don't you?
Yeah. And so just looking into next year, firstly, do you think we're going to start to see more long form content again? Do you think it's still going to be all about the short form videos? You were saying there's less, you know, there was a lot of pressure to create reels and things. Are we going back to images? What kind of platforms and content?
I think we're going back to long form. I think because even from like a kind of literary point of view, seeing people return to things like Substack, it has been such a huge thing this year, where people are going back to conventional blogging, has been so great for me personally. It's because as somebody that still has my blog, I never left either. I still have my blog and I still write on there. And so it's been so nice to see people actually writing about beauty on things like Substack. And I'm seeing people do longer form videos on Instagram. And, with Instagram, I think they're planning to extend their reels to 3 minutes now. So before it was a minute and now it's 3. TikTok, it's 10 minutes.
I know.
And it's slowly, I think we're introducing that long form concept back. I think just the spirit of nostalgia, I think, has kind of really been with us over the last couple of years, where people kind of miss that thing where you would come home from work and you would just have like 12 blogs like open on your browser and have a cup of tea and you just read through all of the blogs and stuff. And those are kind of things that I miss. And so I think people are slowly making a return back to doing that long form content, which I'm all here for, to be fair.
Less brain rot.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're still going to have TikTok short videos as well, but I definitely feel there's been a shift this year where I've noticed people seeming to want some of that longer form, or it's like that episodic content on TikTok.
It's the follow for part 2.
Or like, who the fuck did I marry? And what's in the rug and things. And people, I think we'll start to see brands maybe tapping into influencers to do more of that type of episodic content as well.
Yeah.
And then AI, we've got to talk a bit about AI. The biggest buzzword of the year. What do you think the impact is going to be? Virtual influencers' thoughts? Is it a threat? Is it a opportunity?
I don't think personally AI influencers will become a thing. I think we're too savvy to it. We need that kind of, like we said, representation. And I don't think we'll ever get to the point where an AI person will feel as authentic as a real person, obviously. I think AI will definitely play a massive part in the beauty industry. I think it will just be in different elements. I think we will start to have AI consultants on what products we should be using, or we'll be having kind of AI build our perfect skin routine, and that's where we'll get sold. So it might be that your AI tells you go and buy X product because that's what your picture has told me. I don't think that it's going to replace influencers. I think it's going to replace a different marketing stream.
I wonder if that would make consumption lower. If something told you, if you just had the perfect recipe, the idea of the reason why it's such a big industry is because you can never have enough. And like you say, you're
always wanting to find something else, aren't you?
You take one product out, you bring another one in. It's that like this idea that it's carrot on a string, basically. So if you had AI being like, that's it, there you go.
Yeah, you've solved it.
That's it. You can't have any
Stop
more. Stop looking. Stop there. I wonder if it would promote less consumption.
I guess though that you can prompt more of that. I've tried this and it didn't work. What's next? And I think that by nature humans are super curious. I don't think we're gonna stop looking for that.
Yeah.
And it might be that actually it's another step in the shopping kind of process, that actually we go to AI first, then we go to influencers, and then we go to something else, rather than it being like, AI's told me, I'm now going to maybe search it on TikTok.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that there will be much success with AI influencers. I think in AI in beauty, from a logistical point of view, I think having apps and things like that, like you say, I think will probably be the next wave. Even in the creation of content, there are things where AI, I suppose, could help influencers create content easier.
Or edit it.
Like in terms of editing and things like that. So I think that is where we'll probably see AI. But in terms of actually having AI replace influencers, I think given the recent backlash with certain AI characters with publications,
AI ads as well.
AI ads, I don't think that it's going to be a thing that happens anytime soon, because not only does there need to be more fine-tuning when it comes to the way in which AI characters are created, because like we're seeing, there was that publication that created an AI of somebody of color, but the AI that they created was very whitewashed. So, light skin, green eyes, and then this was supposed to be a Middle Eastern influencer, and that garnished a lot of backlash. And so it's one of those things where I think diversity, will be affected, and also just taking jobs away from influencers that are especially micro influencers. So influencers that are, trying to make a name for themselves and they're trying to also build their audiences will suddenly be cut short because now brands want to use AI influencers. So I don't think it's going to take off in the way that maybe a lot of people think. And I hope it doesn't, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's so like with an industry like beauty, where it's well, all we've talked about today is trying to find someone who is incredibly similar to you.
Yeah.
You're like, where does AI come into that? Because it seems like it's all about the human peer-to-peer thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
It feels like the antithesis of that, really, doesn't it? You
Yeah,
can't
I
imagine
agree. I
it.
think maybe creators might find ways to use AI to facilitate faster, or to help them optimize their own creation and content creation, but not replacing that need for human to human recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay, so to finish, a final question for each of you. What would you say is, like, if you could say one thing for brands to focus on their beauty, social and influencer creator marketing next year, what's like one piece of advice you would give them? I'll come to Steph first.
Oh my God.
On the spot.
On the spot.
I'll give you a second.
Yes,
then.
please.
George.
I think you kind of said it. Bring back those vintage YouTubers that, like, everyone, the OG, like, skincare people, put them in your marketing. People love that shit, and they'll watch it. The comeback of, like, those, like, circa naughty
I'm here for it.
influencers.
Yeah.
Like, people would watch that stuff.
Yeah.
And,
I want
you know,
Zoella's daily vlogs.
Imagine
Oh my
that,
goodness.
yeah.
I still watch Zoella do her makeup.
You could do crazy numbers if a brand did that. And
Yeah.
also, I guess we kind of said it's the long form stuff. Lean into it. Like,
Yeah.
people will watch it. We think that ads, like, we assume everyone hates ads, but when they feel like ads, they do. But when they feel like you're sat in someone's living room listening to them talk about something that you care about, you'll watch it. You'll watch half an hour of that stuff. You can watch an hour, maybe even.
Oh, yeah.
Lean into it. I'd say, don't be afraid to.
Be a bit
It's an ad
nostalgic.
format. It's got to be 30 seconds. We've got to land the CTA in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Let it breathe.
Yeah.
Nice.
Molly?
I think mine's going to be a massive cliche, but I think mine would be along the lines of, like, don't be afraid to take risks. So that whole stay and play kind of narrative of do what matters to you guys, and the education piece and the selling of your brand, but be a bit more different. You need to stand out from the crowd. You need to be reactive. You need to be showing, and I've always said this, is that you want to be the content where people are saying, I want to be that brand manager. Like, who signed that off? That's really cool. Like,
Yeah.
the Maybelline mascara on the bus or the tube or whatever it was is a perfect example of that. Like, who was brave enough to say, yeah, do you know what?
Let's do
We'll
that.
do it. And I think that's where you put yourself in that position where you're challenging yourself to be the kind of the brand manager that is pushing boundaries and creating cool content.
Yeah.
Okay, so mine is, again, not to get too deep into things, but I think, so there is no one way to be beautiful. And I think brands really should tap into that. And actually, I want to see more faces being represented within the beauty landscape. I think there needs to be, like we were saying earlier, older, more mature people being used in ads, disabled people being used in ads, and for us to just kind of let the wider communities know that, beauty comes in all shapes and sizes. And I think we're still in this kind of very European whitewashed focus of what beauty is. Even though we've had all of that, the diversity and inclusion stuff and everything that's been happening, but we're still pushing whiteness as a narrative, as the main default. And I think it would be nice to kind of see that be kind of expanded into other cultures, other different body types, different face types, different abilities. So that we can all feel that kind of inclusion.
Yeah. I love that. And what a great note to end on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to all three
Thanks,
of you for
guys.
joining us
Thank you.
today, for taking some time out to chat about beauty. One of my favourite topics. So I've
Me
loved
too.
it. I reckon I could have talked about this for another hour.